This story does not have a happy ending. Here's my drink of choice today because it is going to be a doozy of a video. Hey guys, this is Sophia and welcome to the first of hopefully only 2 apartment hunting videos in New York. For those of you who are new, my fiance and I just moved to New York, kinda. If you want to see that video, I'll leave the link up there somewhere or in the description box somewhere on the screen. If you haven't seen that video, essentially we are subletting right now in the hopes that while we spend time in New York, we'll be able to find our own apartment. I'm not going to go too much into it. If you want to learn more about like why we decided to do that, you can go watch that video. These are the apartments we saw in July, and while I was only hoping to do one of these, unfortunately the New York City real estate market had other plans. So in this video, we're going to talk about all the apartments my fiance and I saw in July in Brooklyn only. We decided to not even consider Manhattan just because we wanted to live in a more suburban area and we didn't want as much high rises. So this is just for Brooklyn. Without making this video too much longer, let's just get into some FYIs. As I talk about these apartments that I saw, I want to be very, very specific that we were being deliberately picky. We have the privilege to have time to be this picky, especially because not only were we being picky, but this place we wanted to be able to live for at least for 2 to 3 years. Another FYI is that once we get to our criteria, this will mean a lot more, but we were willing to pay for space because my fiance and I both work from home. It's actually going to be a place for us to sleep, eat, and work. And so having all that extra space is something that we were looking for. The second and last FYI is that my fiance and I, we had been to New York in the past, but we'd only spent the time in Manhattan. So we were also using this opportunity to check out different neighborhoods in Brooklyn. We heard and see names on Google Maps, but that doesn't really tell us anything in terms of how convenient the location is, what the location is like, what the neighborhood is like, etc. And the last FYI is that kind of no longer an FYI because stuff fell through, but I will say as we were seeing more and more apartments, my fiance and I were getting better and better at sussing out what was a good fit for us. We didn't really realize what we wanted until we started actually touring these apartments, and so that kind of helped us narrow down what we were looking for, which was helpful and unhelpful at the same time. So those are the FYIs. Now let's talk about our criterias. I'm gonna move the camera a bit. So I have this split into 3 sections. So I have must-haves, nice-to-haves, and the dream. We wanted to stay under 4,500. We were willing to go up to maybe 4,800, but that would have to literally be the perfect apartment. We needed an in-unit washer dryer. We want central air. Originally, I was going to be like, I could live without central air, but no. We need at least a 2-bed. We need it to be near a subway, and when I say near, I mean like less than 10 to 15 minute walk. Natural light. We wanted a living space. This is one of those criteria that was really important to my fiance. I could swing either way depending on the layout of the apartment. And then the last thing for me, which is really important, is not be on a main street. And by main street, I mean, I'll leave a picture of a map. I don't want to be on any street that has a lot of commercial going on. So no restaurants, no shops, no grocery stores, just because for me, sleep is one of my non-negotiables. I need to be able to sleep. Nice to haves would be near a grocery store. So basically walking distance. Has building amenities, concierge / packaging service, maybe a gym if we're lucky, maybe a rooftop, that kind of amenities. No broker's fee. 3-bed, 2-bath. That would be the nice to have configuration. High ceilings would also be great. The last one is a kitchen island. The dream would be to have a private balcony or patio and or even a yard. Those are our criteria. Let's go into the apartment hunting. I have all my notes on my phone because after every apartment we visited, I would write down pros and cons. I'm gonna fly through these because otherwise we will literally be here all day. Before I start though, I want to say really quickly is that a lot of the apartments we were visiting had tenants in them, and so I had to film very discreetly. There were also a few that I did not film just because they were the ones showing us. Okay, so apartment 1, it had great natural light. We could have 1 office each, which was perfect. and there were 2 locked doors to the building. Cons, the hallway was pretty tight. I'm not gonna lie. Like, my fiance and I would not be able to walk by each other. We'd have to go one at a time. The kitchen was in a weird spot. The neighbors had super loud dogs. It was loud with the windows open. It's also in a very, very busy corner. So that was the first time that I considered not a main street. Originally, I had considered like, oh, maybe a main street would be nice, but that was the moment where I was like, maybe not. Apartment 2, on the top floor. It has an ensuite bedroom, which is really nice. In-unit washer dryer, beautiful windows. Honestly, the windows was what drew me to go see this apartment in the first place. There was plenty of light because the windows were so big. It was on a very quiet street, and there was rooftop access. Okay, the cons. This was a walk-up. Like you could see in our criteria, we didn't care if it was a walk-up or an elevator. Like, you would just kind of get used to walking. The kitchen and living was too small. Also, like, the washer dryer, even though it was in unit, it actually ended up taking up a whole chunk of space in the kitchen, so you actually did not have that for storage. Apartment 345. This one was actually in a really, really nice neighborhood. It was right across the park. Lumping 345 into this one pros and cons list because they were all pretty similar and they were all in the same building. So some units were rent stabilized, but it did mean that you had to pay a broker's fee. It had a very modern kitchen and bathrooms, which were nice. They were spacious enough. Some of them even had a kitchen island, which pro. They had nice overhead lights. That was one of the things where some of them didn't have great natural light, but they had decent overhead lights. Layout was great for most of them. The building had a live-in super. It was close to different subway stops. There was in-unit laundry and a dishwasher. And then there was an elevator in the building. The elevator was a little janky, but at least it was an elevator. The cons. No central air. One of the apartments we visited on the 3rd floor, it was a hot day, but it was hot in that apartment. And the biggest con was that most of them were actually out of budget. Apartment 3 and 4, they were in the 5K range, and at that time of apartment hunting, we were open to potentially paying 5K, but as we kept looking, we were just like, no, that's like stretching it way too much. The only one that was within budget, and the reason why I wanted to go see it, was the 1st floor, but the 1st floor was kind of facing a grocery store, which for me, I consider that like main street amenity. So I didn't want all that foot traffic in front of the apartment. Apartment 6, they had a Juliet balcony, which would actually be kind of nice in the fall and winter. There was central air and an elevator. There was decent amount of overhead lights, and there was some natural lighting. So some of the rooms would get natural lighting, but the living room wouldn't. Cons, it was on a main street. The moment I realized we were in front of the building, I said no. There was no laundry in building. This was one of those apartments that we went to go see just to suss out the neighborhood. Apartment number 7. There's only 2 pros. They had a nice exposed brick wall. And it was on a quiet street, but close enough to the main street, which I liked. The cons, no laundry in building, minimal natural light, no overhead lights in the living. Honestly, that was the first thing I noticed. I walked in and I thought, dungeon? We were there at like 3 p.m. So there was no reason for it to be that dark. We would need to buy so many lights. It was a walk up and there was no central air. So honestly, this apartment had nothing that we wanted. The next apartment had an actual living space, had an in-unit washer dryer. There was room for extra storage, which was nice. I have a lot of stuff. Bathrooms were spacious, but there was not a lot of counter space, which is interesting. If you're gonna give a larger bathroom, you should give the appropriate amount of counter space. Bedrooms were sizable, which was nice. There was central air. It was a newish building and there was a rooftop. Cons, the 1st floor was looking right at the street. Interestingly, like, as we kept touring, that became less of an issue, but at this time, this was an issue for this apartment. It was only a 2-bed, but it did have a den, which we were okay with a den. It's far from subway lines. I remember the commute, just walking there, I was like, wow, this is far. There were no grocery stores nearby, and it was kind of, like I was saying, it was a little expensive for what you were getting. I'm lumping these 2 apartments as well. They were in the same building. They had a really nice shaped kitchen layout. One of them was L-shaped, one of them was just like the standard. The layout of the apartment was pretty good, so like not all the rooms were lined up. There was a decent sized living space. Each unit had their own laundry. There was central air and the ceilings were plenty high. But the con of that is that because it was a walk up, You got an extra flight of stairs. Bathrooms were sizable. It was a very modern look. I will say the building was maintained really well. The rooftop view was amazing. Like, you could actually see into Manhattan. Each unit had its own little foyer section. I realized as we were touring more apartments that that is actually common for some of these newer buildings. There was strong overhead lights. The second apartment had its own balcony, and the second apartment also had better natural lighting because of that. Okay, the cons. I already said this, but the walk-up was kind of rough. The natural light isn't great on the first floor. Garbage cans were right outside the first apartment. There was tiny closets, but also because it was tiny closets, we would need to get dressers, which I've already made peace that that's probably something we'll have to do. But because the rooms were so small, I was looking at my fiance and I was like, where would we even put the dressers? Okay, next apartment. This was the apartment that got away. This one hurt. So it was a good price for the amount of space we got, and it was on a residential street. It was close to the subway. You're listening to me being like, why didn't you apply? We did. Again, it was the one that got away. Again, I'll explain later because I don't want this video to be 5 million years long. The cons, it was on the first floor, so you could see the street / the street could see you. There were a lot of doors to get into the apartment. That could be considered a pro or a con. For safety reasons, I'm classifying that as a con. That's a con that I can live with and I can find ways around. Just talking about it, I'm gonna move on. I will say, I thought this video was going to end at this apartment. Next apartment, the pros, there were 2 balconies, which was really nice. It was technically on a side street that was kind of busy, but it faced away from that street. So when you're out on the balcony, it actually was really quiet. There were 2 floors in this apartment, so there could be some work-life separation. The bedrooms were a nice size. There was rooftop access, which was great. And then it was a relatively new building. The cons, one of the balconies is shared, so it's more of like a shared terrace kind of situation. Laundry was only in building, but there was only one set and we would have to essentially walk all the way down, which was not great because this was a top floor apartment. So we have to walk all the way down and walk all the way back up without laundry. The last one, it wasn't the apartment we wanted. We toured this particular apartment a few days after we applied for the previous one, and so we were just kind of trying to keep our options open to check this one out to see if it was better. It wasn't. Next one. Pros was it was a 3-bed 2-bath, which was perfect for us. One of the largest washer dryers we've ever seen. It had central air and it had its own entrance, which was actually amazing. The cons, it was far away from the subway stop. The bathrooms felt claustrophobic. This was the first time I ever walked into a bathroom and was like, no, I do not want to close the door. Honestly, not even really a living room to speak of because it was small and it blended into the kitchen. The tenant was really honest with us, which we appreciated, but there was a potential for mice and pests. Okay, this next apartment, I didn't go, my fiance went alone, so these were his thoughts. So the pros was it was a new build, it had a balcony, high ceiling, good sound quality. There was central air, big closets. He knows what I'm looking for in a closet. Roof access. There was an own foyer, kind of like the other apartments that I was sharing. There was good natural light. The cons was it was a combined washer and dryer. It was a walk-up. The kitchen was meh, would need to get an island. There was only 1 bathroom, and then it was far from the subway. Oh my god, how many apartments did we go see? Apartment 16. This was in Carroll's Garden. We were really, really excited about this apartment. It was on the top floor, which we thought would be great until we started walking up and we realized that it was one of the tallest buildings on the street. There was plenty of natural light in all of the rooms. The kitchen was a decent size and it was a decent sized rooms as well. The cons, like I said, a lot of walking. Washer dryer combo in the kitchen. There were only 2 small closets. One of the closets was even I would consider that a coat closet in the hallway. Like, it's not even in the room. The next apartment, this was a strong contender, I will say. So this one is in Clinton Hill. It was rent stabilized, which was great. There was an extra room, so I would consider this place a 4-bedroom actually. There was central air and a private yard, which was nice. There was a covered patio section, which would be even great when it's like raining or when it's snowing, so you can still technically go outside. And it was close to multiple subway stops. The con, in-building washer dryer. The pro to that was that that particular unit had its own door access. We were talking to the tenant, they said that there could be some flooding situations going on, but if you're vigilant about it, then it should be fine. The kitchen was so compact, there was no microwave, there was not a lot of natural light. And then downstairs felt a little claustrophobic because the ceilings were really, really low. Last 2 apartments. This apartment, the pros was it was brand new appliances, which was nice. They were still finishing the renovation. There's a private patio and a shared space. There's a gym, but would still need a gym membership because it's lacking in what I would need. There was decent natural light, but the overhead lights were really bright, so it was like hard for me to tell. And it was a very large living room, really nice bathrooms, and there would be an in-unit washer dryer. The cons, only one of the rooms have an AC unit. The other 2 rooms I would still need to buy a window unit. Since they were doing construction, we were just like, why don't they just put central air in all the rooms? Like, that makes no sense. Anyways, that room also didn't have a window, so that's probably why that room got central air. The last apartment, it was very much under the budget. And then there was a huge washer dryer. It was supposedly a private backyard, but it was interesting because technically it looked like the second floor unit would have access because there were stairs leading down it. There was central air and there was decent amount of natural lighting in all of the rooms. The cons, it was very far. Wow, I've been filming this video for a whole hour. The fridge was tiny. That is all the apartments we saw. I am so sorry this video was so long. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions about the apartment hunting process so far, or any of the apartments that we saw, let me know in the comments. But hopefully I'll see you for part 2 and the end of the series. Bye guys.